The alien princess stood isolated, everyone recoiling except one audacious human. Cathar's grand arena tasted of ozone, sun-baked rock, and thick anticipation. The tiered stands, like the fossilized ribs of a colossal beast, overflowed with thousands of Cathar, feline predators of formidable build, all focused on their princess. Princess Zarya, a vision of breathtaking beauty and veiled threat, remained still on the bleached sand. Sleek cobalt fur sheathed her muscular form, a testament to predatory grace. Her armor, artfully crafted from darkened plates, daringly exposed her powerful torso and the curve of her breasts, a symbol of unyielding confidence, not vanity. The pair of velvety cobalt blue ears twitched atop her head, sensing the slightest breeze. Her long, powerful tail lay motionless behind her, but her face was captivating, defined by sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and full lips, framed by a cascade of azure hair. Her feline eyes shimmered with molten gold, promising either paradise or utter destruction. A legendary warrior, a commander who crushed rebellions with brutal efficiency, now stood on the precipice of public ruin. "Let the rite of ascension proceed." The herald's amplified voice echoed across the arena. "Princess Zarya, first of her line, seeks a champion. Who will defend her honor? Who will fight for her claim to the obsidian throne?" The question echoed into a deliberate and heavy silence. In the champions gallery, 100 of the Empire's most honored warriors stood encased in their clan armor. The herald's announcement was their cue. One should advance, dedicating blade and life to her cause. But not a single one stirred. A murmur swept through the crowd. Zarya's golden gaze, sharp and weighty, scanned the gallery. Each potential champion she met averted their eyes. Some barely shook their heads. Others lowered their gaze in profound disrespect. They dreaded her temper, her mercilessness, her alleged curse. Fighting for her meant inviting her unpredictable fury, a fate some considered more devastating than death. From his royal box, Prince Kaelin watched with a cruel smile. Behind him stood his champion, a monstrous, scaled being with 4 arms known as the Draknar Behemoth, embodying Kaelin's brutal strength. He secured his champion on day 1. Zarya had none. Her humiliation was his triumph. In the diplomatic gallery, Angel, Earth's first envoy to the Terran Confederacy, leaned forward, knuckles white against the railing. He saw past the fearsome warrior to the slight tremor in her clenched fists. He saw the rigid set of her jaw as she fought to maintain control. He saw a woman completely alone, trapped by the very power intended to define her. His security chief muttered, "Political suicide. Nobody will support her." Compassion was a risky luxury in galactic politics. An alliance with the Cathar was crucial to humanity's future, but it hinged on strength and stability, and this display was anything but. Yet as the suffocating silence persisted, Angel felt a surge of indignation. The herald cleared his throat, the sound piercingly loud. "For the third and final time, does any warrior answer Princess Zarya's call?" The finality of the words hung in the air. For the first time, Zarya's shoulders seemed to droop, a subtle, almost imperceptible movement. But Angel saw a spirit on the verge of breaking, and a mournful cry escaped him, echoing the ache in his desolate heart. He wasn't calculating. Instinct seized him. Straightening his somber gray diplomatic uniform, Angel approached the gallery's edge. His voice, composed and resonating, cut through the suffocating silence of the arena. Every gaze, from the commoners to Prince Kaelin, snapped to him, stunned. The audacity of this, a frail, unarmed human diplomat, was a palpable shock. Zarya's head whipped around, her fierce golden eyes piercing him. The initial shock gave way to a surge of raw fury. This wasn't rescue. It was the ultimate degradation. Angel met her burning gaze, his expression firm, unyielding. He'd plunged into the inferno, feeling the heat radiating from the princess he'd vowed to defend. The anteroom behind the royal box seethed with silent tension. The ancient stone seemed to sweat, torchlight flickering, as the oppressive atmosphere Zarya emanated crackled. She didn't pace. She circled, a great predator assessing an anomaly in her domain. She moved around Angel with fluid, hypnotic grace, deeply unsettling. Her tail lashed, a deliberate rhythm marking time in the thick silence. Angel remained motionless, hands clasped behind his back, his gaze unwavering. Respect to humans, defiance to Cathar. Abruptly, she halted, towering over him, the scent of her wild fur filling his senses, like a storm over a forest. "Do you comprehend what you have done, human?" she purred, her voice a low vibration. "I have answered your call, princess," Angel replied steadily. Her lips curled back, revealing startlingly sharp teeth. "You have made a mockery of me, made a farce of this humiliation. Did your Terran masters orchestrate this? Is this some veiled insult I'm too primitive to grasp?" "No one directed me," he countered. "My superiors are likely planning my swift recall and execution. I acted alone." Her golden eyes narrowed, studying him, seeking deception. He saw the battle within, the warrior's disdain clashing with confusion at his utter lack of fear. Everyone else, even her loyal guards, exuded a low hum of terror. He did not. "Why?" Her question was sharp as a blade. "Because a champion, however unconventional, is a superior statement to none," he stated plainly. "Your cousin desires you to appear deserted, isolated. I've denied him that. You are still in the right. That is all that matters." She stared, her tail twitching. His logic, infuriatingly, was sound. He'd turned her own political machinations against her rival. With the Empire as witness, she was bound to him. "Understand, I offer no protection in the arena," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "The moment you step onto that sand, your fate is your own. When you are broken and bleeding, it will be your own doing." "I understand perfectly, Princess," he said. "Then you are a fool. History is filled with useful fools, Your Highness." A muscle in her jaw tightened. She turned abruptly. "Training grounds at dawn. Do not be late." She swept from the room, leaving a silence louder than her rage. Dawn found him on the training grounds' gray earth. Ho flaunted opulent attire. His gaze, though gentle, held an ocean of unspoken stories, hinting at battles fought and burdens carried, while Zarya sparkled with a manufactured joy, her finery a gilded cage around a wounded heart. She materialized before him, sculpted leather molding to a figure forged for war. In her grasp were two curved training blades, menacing despite their blunted edges. One spun through the air, landing at his feet. "Pick it up!" she bit out, the command of Viper's strike. The instant his fingers closed around the hilt, she erupted. No preamble, no quarter. A cyclone of indigo and shadows, she became a force of pure, brutal motion. Angel barely parried the initial onslaught. The shock of the blow reverberating through his bones. A grim realization dawned. This wasn't instruction. It was a savage test. An attempt to crush his spirit, to extinguish the perceived foolishness and free her from the shame of his presence. She pressed her advantage mercilessly. He was outclassed in every dimension. Strength, agility, reach, sheer predatory instinct. For what felt like an eternity, he was on the ground, air stolen from his lungs, his body blooming with fresh bruises. Her attacks flowed like a deadly river, and he, a clumsy dancer, stumbled with every step. Disarmed, tripped, thrown, yet each time, He hauled himself back up. He'd wipe the grit from his face, reclaim his weapon, and assume his defensive stance, eyes locked on her. Victory was not the goal. Comprehension was. He studied her footwork, the subtle rotation of her hips telegraphing a spinning strike. He registered the preference for her left side, unleashing sweeping arcs, and her right, for swift, piercing thrusts. He was a negotiator, a solver of problems. His mind, his keenest weapon, now raced, absorbing, dissecting, cataloging every fleeting detail amidst the storm of her relentless assault. At last, breathless and slick with sweat, she halted, her chest rising and falling rapidly. He remained before her, battered but unbroken, his gaze unwavering. "Why do you persist in rising?" she demanded, a note of reluctant respect infiltrating her tone. "Because, princess," he rasped, a ghost of a smile gracing his lips. "You haven't yet shown me how to remain down." A wall of sound slammed into Angel as he entered the arena, the roar of the crowd, a tidal wave of jeers and disdain. They mocked him, a pale, insignificant figure against the Cathar champion, Gro, a towering mass of orange fur and muscle who had openly ridiculed Zarya's choice. Gro bared his fangs, flexing his immense arms, a grotesque display of confidence. Angel tuned it out. He centered himself, silencing the noise as he had done countless times in tense negotiations. He walked to his starting position, the borrowed training blade a casual extension of his hand. He lifted his gaze to Zarya's royal box. She sat unyielding, her expression an impassive mask of sculpted cobalt. Their eyes met across the arena. A subtle nod passed between them. He was prepared. The herald's bellow signaled the commencement. Gro charged, a thundering avalanche of fury, his massive blade raised for a devastating overhead blow. Predictable. At the last possible instant, Angel swayed aside. A movement both minimal and absolute. Gro, fueled by his own momentum, hurtled past, his sword leaving a deep scar in the sand where Angel had stood. The crowd erupted in laughter, dismissing it as luck. Gro roared in frustration, charging again, and again Angel sidestepped, a matador evading a bull. He did not engage. He didn't raise his blade. He simply flowed, his feet barely disturbing the sand. The arena became his canvas, and he led Gro on a dance of futility. The Cathar was power incarnate, but his energy was waning with each failed strike. Sweat glistened on his fur, his breathing ragged. Angel, in contrast, was conserving his strength, his breath steady and controlled. He employed the oldest tactic in the world, the power of endurance. Let your adversary defeat himself. Zarya had unwittingly armed Angel. In grueling training, she taught him to anticipate a Cathar's charge, discerning leg muscle tension, shoulder dips. Now, her lessons turned against her kin. "Fight, coward!" Gro roared. Zarya, gripping her box railing, knuckles white, watched. Vorlo, her aged advisor, grimaced. "He mocks honor," Vorlo muttered. "Silence, Vorlo," Zarya commanded, fixated on Angel, seeing strategy, not cowardice. Patience shattered. Gro abandoned skill, lunging at Angel, sword discarded, seeking a crushing blow. Angel seized the moment. Instead of retreat, he met the attack, dropping, pivoting, foot and hip aligned perfectly, executing a human martial art move, using size against itself. Instead of resistance, Gro met only air and a fulcrum. His mass cartwheeled over Angel's hip, landing with a sickening crunch, dislocating his shoulder on the hard sand. A sharp crack echoed. Gro howled in agony, collapsing, face contorted, defeated. Angel stood unscathed, breathing steadily, looking at the fallen warrior, then at Zarya's box. Silence. A vast, galaxy-sized silence blanketed the arena. Cathar stared, minds reeling. The fragile human hadn't struck a blow, hadn't broken a sweat, yet he had won. "Victor by forfeit, Princess Zarya's champion," the herald announced, his voice trembling, breaking the spell. Confused, angry, astonished noise erupted. Zarya ignored it, transfixed by Angel, this impossible human. A strange feeling bloomed in her chest, not gratitude, but a bright spark of intrigue. Medicinal herbs and bandages permeated Zarya's chambers, yet beneath lay a potent scent, Angel's musky blood. He sat shirtless, a canvas of bruises, a shallow cut over his ribs. Zarya knelt, cleaning the wound with precise movements. Her claws remained sheathed, her touch surprisingly soft. A lock of her azure hair brushed his shoulder. He didn't flinch. In Cathar culture, tending wounds was intimate, respectful. A princess doing so for an off-world champion was unheard of. Vorlo had vehemently opposed it, but was silenced. "A foolish risk," she rumbled, golden eyes fixed on her work, her gaze a palpable touch. "Calculated, not foolish," Angel replied softly. "I knew Gro's pride was his weakness. I gave him enough rope." "Rope?" she furrowed. He paused, trying to clarify the strange Earth saying. "An expression," he finally managed. "I used his hate against him. It was the only path to victory." As she finished tending his injury, her touch lingered an instant, radiating a warmth unrelated to his pain. She settled back, truly seeing him for the first time. His torso was a roadmap of old battle scars, a brutal contrast to his role as diplomat. His dark eyes held an unshakable resolve that captured her. "That move," she began, her commanding tone giving way to genuine curiosity. "That pivot, not Cathar." "No," he replied. "Iki Jujutsu, a defensive art, blending with an enemy's force, not confronting it." She absorbed this, her sharp mind considering its strategic value. "Strength crushes strength. It is our way. The strongest live." He gently countered, "And if you aren't the strongest? Or if you face Gro, slower but stronger, or a faster, weaker foe? Strength is only one piece, princess. Balance, timing, strategy. These two are key." A new understanding sparked in her eyes. The following day, their training was transformed. The brutal force was gone, replaced by a sharp, focused calm. She still attacked, but when he failed, she stopped, guiding him, her hands firm and arousing against his skin. "Too wide," she would whisper, her breath a soft caress against his ear as she corrected his feet. "Your core is open." He revealed weaknesses she'd never noticed, how her greatest strikes opened her up. He taught feints, misdirection, using the opponent's assumptions against them. Physical contact was ever present, vital, a wordless tension weaving between them. He discovered the feel of her fur, the immense power within her muscles. She learned of his body's surprising strength, the heat of his flesh. One afternoon, she trapped him in a hold, her body a warm shield at his back, her arm across his throat. Defeated, his breath stolen, yet she remained, a warm wall. His temple rested against her soft cheek, her heartbeat steady and forceful against his back. Her scent, wild and untamed, surrounded him. "You learn quickly, Angel," she breathed, her voice a husky brush against his skin. The use of his name, not title, was intimate, raw. "I have a good teacher," he responded, his heart pounding fiercely from something other than the fight. She eased her grip, but didn't retreat. The air throbbed with unspoken desires. This was no longer just training. This was a dangerous trust, leading them into unexpected, intoxicating ground. This second round was intended to be Angel's end. Prince Kalen, furious at the Terran's earlier victory, altered the rules. Angel would face not one, but two opponents. Twin Cathar assassins known for their coordinated, brutal attacks. It was common knowledge that Kalen had paid them handsomely to see the Terran destroyed. In the hours before the match, Angel and Zarya studied a sand table, crafting their strategy. The easy, heated tension had transformed into shared, sharp focus. "They'll try to flank you," Zarya stated, her clawed fingers sketching converging paths in the sand. "One draws your eye, the other hits your blind spot." "A classic hunting pair tactic. They aim to corner their prey," Angel's opponent explained, her voice tinged with concern. "I won't permit that," Angel countered, his tone resolute as he swept away her lines in the sand. "Instead of an open field, what if we create a choke point?" With a deliberate motion, he sketched a narrow channel. By forcing them into a constricted space where maneuvering becomes impossible, their combined strength is negated. I can face them one at a time, minimizing their advantage. Her golden eyes widened, comprehension dawning within them. The shattered pillar on the eastern edge of the arena. It forms a tight passage against the wall. "Precisely," he affirmed, meeting her gaze. A silent pact formed between them, a fusion of her intimate understanding of warriors and his strategic brilliance. "I merely need to lure them into that trap." As the signal for combat sounded, Angel enacted their scheme. Projecting an image of vulnerability, he stood as a seemingly defenseless target at the arena's center, radiating nervousness and inexperience. The twins, impeccably clad in matching black leather, their arrogance palpable, swiftly took the bait. Circling him with eerie precision, they began to close the distance, tightening their trap. But just as they prepared to strike, Angel surged forward, his movement not that of a fleeing victim, but of a predator with a plan, heading directly towards their predetermined location. As anticipated, the twins' hunting instincts took over, and they gave furious chase, their superior speed shrinking the space between them. Reaching the massive, fallen pillar, Angel dove behind it, squeezing himself into the narrow, constricting passage. Moments later, the twins arrived, their frustration evident in their snarled expressions. Their flanking maneuver was useless now. The first twin lunged into the passage, blade extended, confident in his individual dominance. But the Angel of this fight was not the unskilled boy of the past. Guided by Zarya's expert training, he met the attack not with a clumsy block, but a flowing parry that expertly diverted the weapon. Capitalizing on the confinement, he stepped forward, delivering a series of precise, punishing strikes with the pommel of his sword to his opponent's vulnerable joints, exactly as Zarya had taught him. The warrior staggered back, his arm momentarily paralyzed. Before the second twin could intervene, Angel pressed his assault, disarming the first and executing a rapid, effective takedown, leaving him helpless on the ground. Turning, he met the second twin's attack with newfound confidence. The duel was brief, intense, and decisive. Angel, blending human strategy with Cathar technique, stood triumphant. The arena fell into stunned silence once more. He had not merely survived, he had achieved dominance. As the herald proclaimed his victory, a radiant, genuine smile illuminated Zarya's face. She arose from her throne, her pride in her champion unmistakable, yet her triumph was short-lived. Prince Kalin ascended from his own seat, his voice amplified to carry across the vast stadium. "A captivating victory for our unorthodox champion," he declared, his words dripping with condescending malice. "Such unforeseen success demands a final trial of exceptional merit. Let us abandon these trivial duels and instead honor the ancient traditions." A wave of nervous whispers swept through the crowd. Zarya's smile vanished, replaced by a chilling dread. Kalen's smirk widened. "I invoke the claws of the Wild Hunt. The final trial will not be a mere contest between champions. It will be a test of true Cathar supremacy." The heirs and their champions will be released into the perilous wilds. The last one standing will claim the throne. The proclamation crashed upon the arena like a physical force. The rules were not merely altered, they were shattered. The Great Hunt, a savage relic of a bygone era, a blood-soaked tradition long abandoned, was resurrected. The Perilous Wilds, a colossal enclosed jungle preserve on the moon, teeming with the Empire's most lethal predators, awaited them. Zarya stood paralyzed, her face draining of all color. No longer merely a spectator, she was no longer safe within the confines of her royal box. Kylan had found a way to eliminate not only her champion, but her as well. De solace amidst the chaos. The world outside roared, a tempest of noise and uncertainty. But here, in this secluded nook, a fragile peace bloomed. He discovered comfort, a gentle balm for his weary soul, nestled securely within the tempest's eye. She sensed his desire for revenge, a burning need to hunt him personally. He saw her as prey, and her only hope resided in the human beside her, his shock mirroring hers. The transition was brutal. One moment, the sterile transport. The next, the ramp hissed open, releasing a wave of wild air. It was alive, thick with damp earth, decay, and alien musk. Humidity pressed down, instantly chilling Angel's skin. Bioluminescent plants bathed the jungle in sickly green and purple light. "One cycle," the pilot's voice crackled. "Survive, hunt, or be hunted. Cycle ends at dawn." The ramp slammed shut. The ship vanished, leaving them utterly alone. Zarya transformed instantly. The regal princess vanished, replaced by the predator. She crouched slightly, golden eyes darting through the dense jungle, ears swiveling, tail testing the air. "This way," she growled softly. She moved silently, blending into the shadows. Angel followed, senses on high alert, a stranger in this primordial world. But his mind raced, analyzing, assessing. The flora provided light, but also concealed danger. The soft earth muffled footsteps, but retained tracks. He gripped his thigh-strapped survival blade, a pathetic defense against the coming horrors. Their partnership, born in the training ring, now faced its ultimate trial. Her instincts would guide them. His strategies would be their map. She could identify a predator's call from kilometers away. He could find the best place to defend themselves. They moved for hours. Then she froze, hand up. Angel stopped, every muscle tense. She pointed to the ground, where massive reptilian tracks and smaller booted footprints ested in the mud. "Kylan!" Zarya snarled. "And his Draknar!" "East toward the spires," Angel observed quietly. "A high vantage point. We go west. Put distance between us until we know the terrain." "No," Angel contradicted softly. "We do what they least expect. We follow them." Zarya turned, disbelief blazing in her golden eyes. "Madness! The Draknar is a monster. It would tear us apart." "Which is why we won't fight it yet," he countered. "We'll shadow them, learn their patterns, let them lead us to water, shelter, clear the way of lesser threats. Knowledge is our greatest weapon, Zarya, and they're gathering it for us." She stared, her warrior soul fighting against this seemingly cowardly tactic. But his cold logic was undeniable. He asked her to suppress her instincts, to trust him. "All right, human," she conceded finally. "We do it your way." As the planet's multicolored moons rose, they found a shallow cave beneath a massive glowing fungus. A meager shelter, but defensible. The temperature plummeted. Cold mist crept through the jungle. Angel shivered, his uniform offering little warmth. Zarya, protected by her thick fur, seemed unaffected, but she saw his tremor. After hesitating, she sat beside him, back against the cave wall. Then she... Her actions stilled him completely. A slow dance began as she unfurled her magnificent tail, its muscles rippling with suppressed power. It circled his waist, drawing him inexorably closer until his entire side nestled against hers. An intense, immediate heat radiated from her, a vibrant furnace against the biting cold, her fur softer than any dream. "For warmth," she announced, her voice carefully devoid of emotion, presenting it as a simple, strategic necessity. "Right," he managed, his own voice betraying a tremor. Every point of contact blazed in his awareness, the gentle pressure of her thigh, the unwavering strength of her torso, the surprising softness and power of the tail encircling him. He felt the subtle rhythm of her breathing, the rise and fall of her chest. The air within their confined sanctuary thickened, charged with an entirely new kind of heat, as the fragile barriers between them began to crumble in the heart of the endangered night. The hunt, the lurking danger, the vast world outside their refuge faded, leaving only the two of them pressed together within the encompassing darkness. They remained in the shadows of Kalin and his Draknar champion for nearly a cycle. From a concealed vantage point, they observed the colossal behemoth carve a path through the dense undergrowth, effortlessly swatting aside predators that posed a deadly threat to both Angel and Zarya. Kalin followed confidently, shielded from the raw dangers of the wilderness by his living weapon's might. Just as Angel had foreseen, the pair unwittingly led them to a pristine water source and revealed hidden passages through seemingly impassable terrain. However, Angel sought something more. He meticulously studied the Draknar, noting its clumsy gait, its reliance on brute force, and its unexpected vulnerability to piercing, high-pitched sounds, which caused it to bellow in agitation and clutch at its scaled head. "He's a hammer," Angel whispered to Zarya, concealed amidst the dense fronds of a gigantic fern, their eyes fixed on their quarry below. "He seeks a nail, lacking finesse or strategy beyond direct assault." "He doesn't require it," Zarya countered, her gaze unwavering from the creature's 4 powerful arms. "That hammer can shatter stone." "Every weapon has a weakness," Angel murmured, his mind racing. "We cannot engage him head-on, but we might possess the intellect to outmaneuver him, to separate him from Kalin." He turned towards her within their hiding place, the faint bioluminescent glow casting strange, dancing shadows across their faces. "I have a plan," he said. "It's fraught with risk. It demands perfect execution and requires you to act against every instinct you possess as a warrior." She turned to face him, her golden eyes searching his. The bond of trust between them had grown stronger with each shared moment of peril, each silent acknowledgement of understanding. "Tell me," she said. "We will set a trap, not for the Draknar, but for Kalin. We will exploit his arrogance against him." Angel's plan was intricate, involving a narrow canyon, a network of tripwires crafted from resilient vines, and a patch of shrieking flora sensitive to vibrations. The intention was to trigger a rock slide, isolating Kalin from his champion, leaving the prince exposed and vulnerable. "You wish me to run?" Zarya questioned, her voice strained with disbelief. "You want me to act as bait, drawing them into the canyon, and then flee while you trigger the trap?" "I want you to be the distraction," he corrected gently, his voice sincere. "You are the one thing Kalin cannot disregard. Your presence will capture his undivided attention. He won't be focused on the ground beneath him. His gaze will be fixed on you. It's the only way this can work." He reached out, his hand hovering momentarily before gently resting on her armored forearm, his touch warm and steady. "I understand that this is not your way," he continued, his voice earnest. "Your inclination is to confront a threat directly. However, my way is to survive to fight another day. I need you to trust me, Zarya. Not merely my strategy, but me." She shifted her gaze from his hand on her arm to his steady, unwavering eyes. He was asking her to place her life, her claim to the throne, everything, on the strength of his intellect. He needed her to be his protector, a bulwark against the storm, while he played the more offensive role. The sword felt different now. Their roles, once so defined, blurred into a complete transformation. Surrounded by a treacherous jungle, an unusual calm washed over her. Her old ways had only delivered public shame. His had kept them breathing. A deliberate nod sealed her commitment. "I will," she declared, her voice resonating with newfound resolve. A different kind of fire sparked in her eyes, not fueled by anger, but by fierce loyalty. "But should your scheme falter, human, I will dismantle him, limb from limb." "I wouldn't expect any less," he murmured, a ghost of a smile on his lips. The following hours were devoted to preparing the canyon with painstaking care. Their teamwork was seamless, their movements fluid and synchronized. He identified the rock face's vulnerabilities. She tested the resilience of the jungle vines. Words were scarce, replaced by a shared understanding of their deadly purpose. An intimacy born from rigorous training and hardened by the night's chill had now, in this shared hunt, become something unbreakable. They were not a princess and her champion. They were partners, a single devastating force ready to unleash a carefully planned reversal of fortune. A palpable stillness hung in the canyon air as Zarya deliberately positioned herself at its far end. She was bait, and she exuded an air of calculated arrogance. "Kaelin!" Her voice cut through the air, sharp and challenging. "Hiding behind that beast? Or will you finally face me?" As anticipated, the taunt struck her cousin's ego. Moments later, Kaelin appeared at the canyon's entrance, the massive Draknar lumbering beside him. A cruel, triumphant smile twisted his features. "So, the little mouse finally dares to squeak," he sneered, a fatal miscalculation. He saw her. The Draknar surged forward, its heavy steps shaking the earth. This was Angel's moment. Concealed on the ridge, he severed the main tripwire. It worked perfectly. The vibration set off the shrieking plants, which erupted in a deafening, high-pitched wail. The Draknar faltered, clutching its head, roaring in pain and confusion. Simultaneously, the supports for the rock face gave way. Boulders and scree thundered down, forming a barrier behind the Draknar, sealing the canyon entrance. The trap had sprung. Kalin and Zarya were separated from the Draknar, trapped on opposite sides of the landslide. Kalin stared at the rock wall, then at Zarya, his expression a mix of shock and rage. He was isolated, his living shield gone. "You," he hissed, drawing his blade. "A clever trick, cousin. But you forget, I am still a Cathar warrior." He charged. The duel became the raw, visceral confrontation it was always meant to be. Zarya was a changed warrior. She fought not just with power, but with cunning. She remembered Angel's teachings, parrying, redirecting, using Kalin's attacks to create vulnerabilities. Cobalt fur and blackened steel became a lethal dance. Kalin, despite his arrogance, was outmatched. She disarmed him with a swift wrist lock and swept his legs out from under him. He fell heavily, the obsidian throne slipping from his grasp. Zarya stood over him, her blade poised at his throat, victorious. But beyond the landslide, the Draknar was regaining its senses. With a furious roar, it began pounding at the rock wall, its fists like living battering rams. Boulders splintered and exploded. It was breaking free. "Angel," his part in the trap concluded, scrambled down the ridge toward Zarya. "We have to leave, now!" Zarya glanced from her defeated cousin to the crumbling wall of rock. But before she could move, the Draknar burst through, erupting in a storm of dust and stone, its eyes blazing with blind rage. It didn't. Kalin lay broken, forgotten. The Draknar's crimson gaze locked onto Zarya, the voice, the deceiver. A roar ripped from its throat as it lunged, claws extended, seeking finality. Zarya, unbalanced by her triumph over Kallen, was vulnerable. Her blade rose too slowly. The blow never landed. Angel, defying reason, moved. Driven by a fierce, untamed protection, he hurled himself before Zarya, absorbing the Draknar's brutal assault. Claws, vast as his chest, tore across him. He flew, a broken doll, landing motionless, a dozen meters distant. A sound, pure, animalistic rage, erupted from Zarya. Not a word, but a primal scream of loss. Her golden eyes blazed, no longer molten, but white-hot suns. Princess, strategist, woman, all consumed, leaving only a predator. She descended upon the dazed Kallen and the Draknar with terrifying speed. It wasn't a fight, it was obliteration. As the crimson mist settled, she stood panting, the victor. Then the fury vanished, replaced by icy dread. She sprinted to Angel's side. He lay in a spreading pool of blood, his chest ripped open, shallow breaths escaping his lips. She knelt, her hands trembling, unable to touch him. Victory tasted like ash. The throne, the empire, meant nothing if he died here. Resolve born of desperation hardened her. She tore strips from her tunic, pressing them against his wounds. The warm blood soaked through instantly. "No," she whispered, a broken sound. "You will not die. I command it." His life ebbed with each breath. The extraction point, kilometers away through treacherous terrain. Leaving him meant certain death. Only one choice remained. Gently, with surprising tenderness, she gathered him in her arms. His head lolled against her shoulder, his body limp, frighteningly light. She rose, his weight a precious, terrible burden, and began to run. She ran on pure adrenaline, her powerful legs devouring the ground, her lungs burning. She leaped over obstacles, clawed through thorns, waded through streams, protecting Angel. The jungle, once their hunting ground, was now an enemy, a hateful barrier to survival. Pausing briefly under a giant leaf, she gazed at his face, pale, lips tinged with blue, his skin growing cold. A keening sound rose within her. She pressed her forehead to his, her soft fur against his clammy skin. "Stay with me, Angel," she murmured, her voice thick with tears. "You foolish, brave, impossible human. You weren't supposed to do that. That was my fight." Her confessions tumbled out, whispered for him alone. "You saw me when no one else did. You stood for me. Everything I will become, it is because of you. Don't leave me to face it alone, please." Adjusting her grip, she ran again, fueled by fear and a desperate, blossoming love. When she emerging into the extraction zone, she was a vision of brutal triumph, a warrior queen smeared with grime, her champion's blood clutching his form like a sacred relic. The automated systems registered her as the lone victor. The contest concluded. The transport ship descended, its ramp extending to greet the Cathar Empire's new sovereign. Yet she displayed no exultation. She ascended the ramp with fierce strides, ignoring the frantic medics. "Ready the Royal Medical Bay now," she roared, her voice harsh with authority and desperate fervor. "Every autodoc, every regenerative specialist. If he dies, I will dismantle this vessel, plate by agonizing plate." Aboard the flagship, she remained at his side, a vigilant guardian as her empire's most advanced medical science mended his ravaged flesh, machines desperately clinging to his fading life signs. Her faithful advisor, Vorlo, discovered her there, standing watch over the shimmering stasis field. He perceived the raw, protective terror blazing in her golden eyes as she monitored the human's precarious existence. He noticed her hand, resting firmly on the field. Directly over Angel's heart, Vorlow's aged Cathar features softened. He had dedicated his life to serving the royal lineage, witnessing Zarya's transformation from a ferocious cub into a feared princess. Yet never had he seen such a display of raw emotion. The warrior had encountered her equal, the princess, her anchor. Vorlow bowed his head, realizing that Empress Zarya's ascension was merely the first in a wave of seismic changes set to reshape the empire. Everything had irrevocably shifted. Angel surfaced slowly, rising from an inky abyss of oblivion. His initial sensation was the absence of pain. The next, a gentle, consistent pressure on his hand. He blinked, his vision adjusting to the soft, diffuse glow of the medical bay. His gaze traced his arm down to his hand, which rested upon crisp white linen. Another hand, covered in fine cobalt fur and sporting gently retracted claws, held his. His eyes followed the arm upwards, finding its owner. Zarya was slumped in a chair beside his biobed, sound asleep, her head resting on her arm, her magnificent azure hair disheveled. Her armor was gone, replaced by a simple, soft tunic. The formidable warrior princess appeared utterly exhausted and surprisingly vulnerable. Even in slumber, her grip on his hand was firm, resolute, as if afraid he would slip away. He watched her, the steady beeping of the medical monitors, a quiet counterpoint to the powerful emotions surging within him. He remembered the canyon, the Draknar's flashing claws, the searing agony, and throwing himself in front of her. He felt no regret. As if sensing his gaze, her sharp ears twitched, her golden eyes fluttered open, first clouded with sleep, then widening with shock and overwhelming relief as they met his. "Angel," she breathed, her voice husky. "Princess," he replied, his own voice raspy. "Or should I say, Empress." A small, weary smile graced her lips. She squeezed his hand. "You are awake." It wasn't a question, but a whispered prayer of gratitude. Power, titles, the entire universe seemed to fade, leaving only them in the quiet sanctuary. The unspoken emotions that had crackled between them for weeks finally had space to breathe. "I thought I lost you," she confessed, her voice soft and vulnerable in a way he had never heard before. "You're not that easy to get rid of," he said gently. "Besides, I had to see how the story ended." She leaned forward, her expression intensely serious. "This is not the end, Angel. This is the beginning." Days later, the Obsidian Throne's Grand Hall was filled to capacity. The Cathar nobility, clan leaders, and representatives from numerous star systems had convened for the coronation of Empress Zarya. She stood before them, radiant and powerful, clad in new armor inlaid with silver that shimmered like captured starlight. The weighty crown of Cathar, forged from dark metal and glittering jewels, adorned her head. She received the fealty of her people, a natural majesty radiating from her, silencing any whispers of doubt. As the last rites concluded, she lifted a hand, commanding quiet. "On this day of my coronation, I pronounce one final crucial decree," she declared, her voice resonating with a strength newly discovered and finely honed. "The Cathar Empire, isolated for too long, will stand alone no more. Today, I decree a complete and unbreakable alliance with the Terran Confederacy, sealed by trade, by shared protection, and by inviolable honor." A wave of astonishment rippled through the assembly. An alliance with the soft-skinned humans? Undeterred, Zarya's gaze, like molten gold, swept across the sea of faces, a silent challenge. True partnerships demand equilibrium. A warrior's might must be balanced by a scholar's wisdom. A ruler's command must be softened by a tender heart. She turned, her hand outstretched in invitation. From the depths of the throne's shadow, Angel emerged. He wore the formal dress of a Terran diplomat, yet his presence exuded a newfound strength. A delicate latticework of scars marked his chest, just visible at his collar, a constant reminder of the price he had willingly paid. He walked to her side, never behind, and clasped her hand, their fingers, one covered in fur and tipped with claws, the other pale and unblemished, entwined. "I present to you my chosen consort," Zarya announced, her voice brimming with a pride that soared beyond politics. "Angel of Terra. He faced our ancient customs when all others fled. He fought for my vision, his mind proving more lethal than any weapon. He will stand beside me, guiding this empire into a glorious new dawn." They stood before the throne, a unified force. The human who had never flinched from the fearsome alien princess, and the empress who had discovered that true power lay not in fear, but in love. The silence in the hall shattered, not with confused whispers, but with a rising, deafening roar of acceptance for the Empire's new, unexpected face.